Hey guys, and welcome to the Moms and Mysteries podcast, a true crime podcast featuring myself, Mandy, and my dear friend Melissa. Hi, Melissa.
Hi, Mandy. How are you?
I am doing well. I feel like I have finally, a week later, recovered from being at CrimeCon.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like we've been home for a while, but we talked about it a little bit, how I just feel like it takes me so much longer. Like the older I get, it takes me longer and longer just to recover from doing anything outside of my ordinary, especially if it involves traveling, especially if it involves time zones and switching back and forth.
And delayed flights.
Yes.
And you did a lot. Like you were active outside of CrimeCon and did some things. So I feel like, you should be tired.
Yeah, I know we didn't, I didn't really talk much about it on the last episode, but yeah, I did have the opportunity to go and do a couple of really fun things. Well, one thing we did together, we went on like a cool little nature wildlife drive. We were supposed to see bison. We did not see bison.
No, but we saw prairie dogs. The cutest thing I've ever seen.
They were so cute. And you know, Melissa is not one to ooh and ah and over an animal.
No.
But you did.
I was loving it. I would see their little heads pop up and I was losing my mind. It was so cute.
It was so cute. Yeah, that was a lot of fun. But then I also went and visited the Stanley Hotel, which I'm sure a lot of our listeners probably know the Stanley Hotel and maybe would have been interested in hearing about that. But yeah, it was really interesting, fun, historic. I went with our friend Kim, who was the host of the People Are Wild podcast. Some of our older listeners might remember who she is, but it was so fun to get to go and hang out with her. It was a little bit of a drive through the mountains, which was interesting for me because I don't drive in the mountains.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
But it was so much fun just to go see that. And The Shining has always been one of my favorite horror films or thrillers, if you want to call it that. It was one of the first ones I remember watching when I was a kid and latching onto and being like, oh, okay, so movies aren't always like Bambi and Snow White. Like there's also there's other types of movies out there. So that was one of my first introductions. So getting to see the Stanley Hotel was very exciting for me and something that has been on my bucket list. So yeah, I was happy to achieve that while I was there.
That's awesome. And we did we didn't mention this either, but we did an escape room with our friend Kim.
Oh, yeah. How did I forget?
And I know. And Kimberly and Katie with A Date with Dateline. And I don't think I've ever felt as stupid as I did in the first room, not really understanding how anything worked. I was putting a code into the same thing over and over and over again. That's not how it works. But it was so much fun and we actually escaped.
We did. Yeah. I mean, I wasn't surprised because, I feel like we're all pretty capable,
5 ladies,
strong,
we can
independent, intelligent women. But yeah, it was a little hard. And then some of them that Kimberly and Katie were figuring, they were the whiz kids of the operation. They were figuring out every single one.
All of them.
And some of them I was like, I'm lost. They would be even explaining oh, you have to do this goes together, and I'm still lost. So I was just
when they would explain it, I was like, why don't you just do it? I don't know what I'm trying to scan things on some what was it? The cash register that says literally do not press buttons, only scan. And I'm just buttons,
right.
buttons, trying to figure out.
They're trying to trick me, right? It has to be. So
I fully think everyone's trying to trick me in my life. So that's exactly what I thought was happening. But overall, it was an awesome trip. I totally get it. I don't know that I'm completely recovered. I am unpacked. So that helps.
Yes. Yeah.
That took me a couple of days, but I am fully unpacked now. So we're getting there.
Getting there.
I'm very excited this week. We are doing kind of a smorgasbord of things, right?
Yes.
Mandy, you had an idea for one of these stories, and then we kind of looked into a few others. So I'm so excited to talk about this. This is a little bit different, which we say all the time, which means
we're always doing different things. Yeah.
We are so original.
Is it different or is it just random? Because should we?
Okay. Yeah. Let's say that. It's random, but it's Thursday. So that's where we are the most random. So
yes.
Mandy, let's get into it.
All right. So most of the time when we talk about theft, it's usually motivated by the simplest of factors, and that is money. But sometimes the thing that's stolen is actually priceless, not because of, its resale value, but because really of what it represents to the person who owns it, or just in general. It could be a piece of history, a rare artifact, or just really an obsession that can't be satisfied by anything less than owning the real thing, which as a child, I used to obviously not plan crimes, but I would think about the ruby red slippers from The Wizard of Oz and how they were just sitting behind in a case at like the Smithsonian. And I'm like, how come no one ever just goes and steals them? Like, I would think that.
This is coming from the girl with a hamster in her pocket. So
yes.
things are starting to make a lot more sense.
I have definitely reformed myself in my adulthood since I was a child. But
no, I totally agree. There are some where I'm like, really, nobody's going to take this. It's just sitting out here.
Right.
Which is such a dumb thing. Not a dumb thing to think, but like it's a kid thing to think. I mean, I do it in adulthood too, where I'm like, what's stopping somebody from taking this, chair at Cracker Barrel when they have all the chairs lined up? I'm like, what's stopping somebody from just backing up and doing this?
And there's so many people. There's so many intrusive thoughts floating around out there. No one's intrusive thoughts have ever told them to go take like a historical artifact. I mean, I guess they have. We're going to talk about a few cases of people doing just that.
We answered our own question.
Yeah, exactly. So today we are talking about some, I guess you can call intellectual crimes. I don't know if I call them that because when I say intellectual, I think the person must have been very intelligent, but I don't know. I guess that remains to be seen.
TBD.
So, as we'll see, some of these so-called masterminds of the crimes we're talking about today were less Ocean's 11 and more like misplaced library card energy.
So the first story takes us not into a dark alley with jewel thieves, not even to a person that's having intrusive thoughts, but into the polished marble halls of one of the country's most prestigious libraries. The Boston Public Library, which has been around since 1895, holds more than 1.7 million rare books, manuscripts, and artworks. It's a kind of place where a single shelf might contain more cultural history than most of us saw in 4 years of high school. Mandy, here's an important question. Dewey Decimal System. Do you remember doing the Dewey Decimal System in, was this,
I mean, yeah. I mean,
Please?
I remember learning about it. I don't know that I remember how it works.
No.
I was hoping you weren't going to ask me.
I would never ask that. No, I very much remember, I remember being very against the Dewey Decimal System, which I'm assuming the Boston Public Library probably has, because I was looking up books on Amelia Earhart in elementary school for some project, but I thought it was A-I-R is how you'd spell Earhart.
Of course.
And in the kids section, I kept going through it over and over and over. And I just remember from that day on just being like ticked off at the library. Like, you've got to have did you mean E-A-R? Like something in the Dewey Decimal System that would help you out. But alas, it didn't. And there, my love of reading probably stopped. So in 2015, the library suddenly found itself in the middle of a scandal that sounded like an art heist, except the culprits weren't suave criminals with grappling hooks. Instead, and boy can I relate to this, the enemy was the library's own messy filing system.
That would be my enemy.
Right? That is my enemy. If I brought the camera down just a little bit, you could see 3 empty water bottles, a coffee cup. I don't drink coffee. There's lots of things going on in here. My whole life is messy. So here's what actually happened, though. All the way back in April of 2014, a group of school children came in for a visit and saw one of the most popular things at the library. It's their crown jewel. It's Albrecht Dührer's 1504 engraving of Adam and Eve. And so this isn't just any old print. It's considered the pinnacle of Northern Renaissance printmaking. So it's a kind of thing you'd insure for like $600,000.
Oh my gosh, imagine.
Why are we allowing children even around it? Those grubby hands.
Oh my gosh.
But sometime after this visit, the engraving went missing. And not just for a week, not a month, for over a year.
And it wasn't alone. There was another treasure that they also took, which was the Rembrandt van Rijn. And it was from 1634. It's an etching called Self-Portrait with Saskia. And it's valued at about $30,000. And that had also vanished. And that is really when things went from bad to worse. So the library realized that these works were missing in June of 2014, but they didn't report it to the authorities until May of 2015, almost an entire year later. And when the news finally broke, it turned into a full-blown media circus. There were headlines. They were screaming about, priceless art vanishing from one of America's most beloved institutions. It was obviously just people were in an uproar. How could this happen? And the police and the FBI suddenly found themselves involved. The mayor's office was actually also breathing down everyone's neck to figure this out, and the public was wondering how a place that was literally dedicated to preserving culture could lose track of $630,000 worth of culture. And the political fallout was also fast and ugly, as it often is. Amy Ryan, who's the library's president, and she'd been in charge for 8 years, was suddenly in the hot seat because, of course she was. She's the president of the library. And critics pointed to, the mistakes, like not mentioning the fact that these things were missing for a year. And there was really no inventory system. The board of trustees seemed more like a fan club than anybody actually performing oversight on what was going on.
But that is a problem if you don't have a real inventory system for things of that price.
So the mayor's chief of staff, Dan Coe, basically demanded answers, kind of in a way that sounded not very polite, but it was more like, okay, like, who was asleep at the wheel? Who's responsible for this? Who can we, I guess, blame this on?
Who can we blame? Yeah,
right,
100%.
Who can take accountability?
The children.
Right. So Ryan tried to hold her ground, but after a particularly heated board meeting, she ended up resigning and said that she just didn't want to distract from the library's mission, which is really just kind of like a nice way of saying that she would be the scapegoat and let's all just move on.
That's all that people really want when things like this happen, is like someone's head's going to roll. Like
right.
Someone has to take responsibility. So I don't really blame her. I'd probably want to be out of there at that point. So meanwhile, though, the library's keeper of special collections, Susan Glover, was also suspended with pay. I mean, Mandy, that actually doesn't sound like a bad gig.
No.
She's sitting at home. The whole city's debating whether or not you've replaced this Renaissance masterpiece, and you're getting paid. You could watch old Maury episodes or Cheaters, which I forgot was a thing until the other day, and I definitely want to watch some old ones. And just when it looked like the Boston Public Library had joined the ranks of history's greatest unsolved heist, that's where the twist came in. On June 4th, 2015, literally the same day that Amy Ryan resigned, staffers found both artworks. They were sitting about 80 feet away from where they were supposed to be. I'm going to blame the Dewey Decimal System completely, and there's no facts to back that up, but who's going to tell me no? So these things weren't like smuggled anywhere. They're not hanging in some billionaire's hidden gallery, just misfiled. I can't imagine being Amy that day and being like, are you freaking kidding me? How did somebody put this in the wrong spot? For a year.
Yeah.
To get to that point, it had taken 14 staffers combing through 180,000 prints, rifling through stacks of 320,000 items, and searching offices and reading rooms and storage spaces. There were hundreds of hours of searching, and all for the big reveal that someone had essentially shelved a Rembrandt like it was maybe the wrong copy of Goodnight Moon, which if I was Amy Ryan, I would be set
furious.
Off.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So the fallout, of course, was still severe. The fiasco exposed these glaring weaknesses in the library's systems. There's no regular comprehensive inventory, as we talked about before. There was bad communication and big gaps in security. And of course, it's great. The artwork is back, but the library's credibility definitely took a hit. So this one isn't actually a theft, but it kind of feels like one. Well, it stole Amy Ryan's job.
And it stole like time and energy from the authorities and from the people who,
So much time for somebody to misfile something. But this is a place that obviously people trust in to have these like incredible pieces of art and, all this stuff that contains so much history. So for them to lose it is like a big damage to the public trust, which can sometimes be just as bad as an actual heist. And we have more to get into after a quick break to hear a word from this week's sponsors.
Did you know your liver is the second largest organ in your body? It handles over 500 functions, but it's one of those things we never really think about until we should.
Honestly, the human body is so amazing, but that statistic that you talked about was what made me curious about Dose. Their Dose for Your Liver shot was made to help keep your body's filter running smoothly. It aids digestion and helps flush out unwanted elements while breaking food down into the nutrients we actually need.
And the science behind it is impressive. In a double-blind, placebo-controlled clinical trial, over 86% of people saw their liver enzymes drop by 50%. That's not just hype, that's real results.
Plus, it's so easy to work into your day. One dose shot is like taking 17 shots of turmeric juice at once, and it's gluten-free, dairy-free, sugar-free, and vegan. If you stick with it, you'll notice better digestion, more energy, and even clearer sleep and focus over time.
Save 25% on your first month of subscription by going to dosedaily.co/moms or entering moms at checkout. That's dosedaily.co/moms for 25% off your first month subscription.
Say goodbye to sticky notes and calendar confusion because Skylight Calendar is here to help keep your family organized.
And you know I'm all about a schedule. If it's not written down, it doesn't exist in my world. Skylight takes all of our calendars, that means school events, soccer practice, even chores, and puts them in one place on a sleek HD touchscreen.
I also like that it syncs with Google, Apple, Outlook, all of it. And you can color code each family member, so there's no more excuses of, I didn't know I had to do that. It really only takes your kids learning the hard way one time to make sure they're giving you everything they need to put on the calendar as well. Plus, you can see daily, weekly, or monthly views, which actually makes it easy to plan ahead.
My favorite part is actually the companion app. I can update the grocery list or add an appointment from anywhere, and it shows up instantly on the display at home. And Skylight even gives you 120 days to try it out. If you're not 100% happy, you can send it back for a full refund.
Right now, Skylight is offering our listeners $30 off their 15-inch calendars by going to skylightcal.com/moms. Go to skylightcal.com/moms for $30 off your 15-inch calendar. That is skylightcal.com/moms. And now back to the episode.
So we have heard a story about a very strange occurrence at a library where people just don't keep track of things. And now we're going to talk about an accidental heist of a Boston man who made stealing really into an art form, or at least in his own mind, that's what he thought he did. John Charles Gilkey wasn't your typical criminal. He was born in 1968 in Modesto, California, and he just really was an ordinary guy. He wasn't wealthy, he wasn't flashy, and he just didn't really seem destined for fame or infamy, really, just kind of was a guy. But he had one big dream, and that was to surround himself with rare, expensive books that would make him look like the kind of sophisticated upper-class intellectual he desperately wanted to be. And he wasn't about to let a little thing like not actually being upper-class intellectual and sophisticated, those things weren't going to stop him. So he worked at Saks Fifth Avenue in San Francisco, which already tells you that, he's kind of in striking distance of a lot of credit cards of people who have high credit limits. And he started stealing those card numbers and using them to buy himself these rare books. And he would have the books shipped to hotels so no one would be able to trace them back to him. Between 1997 and 2010, with a very short little stint in prison in between, Gilkey racked up about $200,000 worth of stolen rare books and manuscripts. And he wasn't just targeting random works. He carried around the Modern Library's 100 best novels list like it was his personal grocery list and would just tick off first editions as he went. He was really getting every single thing. And what's wild is that you would think that he would obtain these books so he could sell them for profit, but that's actually not what he ever did. He wasn't interested in that. He truly just wanted the books for himself to make himself appear like he was refined and that he would, he was giving himself the status that he thought he deserved.
But can you even tell people that you have these books because they're stolen? So, how are you looking refined if you're like, look at all these first editions I have, and people are like, well,
here's the thing. Yeah, it's either, okay, if someone brought me into their home library and was like, these are my collection of rare books, I would just be like, oh, cool, because I am not well-versed in that world. So I would just be
I'm
like,
an idiot.
That's
I forgot.
Cool. So either the person that you're showing the books to has to either be like me and not know anything about books, or because if you show it to the wrong person who does know about books, then they could be like, wait a minute, where did you get all these?
And they could be like, wait a minute, I remember someone bought a book that you happen to have here on my credit card and I never got it.
Right, exactly. So yeah, but just general, I feel like I would never question if it was stolen or not. If someone just told me they had like a collection of rare books, I'd be like, oh, okay, you're a rare book collector. Like I would never think that they were stolen.
Good point. You know what? You got me on that one. But the psychology behind John Gilkey is totally fascinating, even though it's a little pathetic. John Gilkey rationalized his crimes by saying that rare books were unfairly locked away from people like him and that dealers were greedy and that he was just making them more accessible, which again, to him, only to him. But in his mind, he's not a thief. He's sort of a Robin Hood. He once told a journalist that he thought he was 60% wrong and 40% right, which is how my son explains anything he does that I ask him not to have done. There's like percentages involved. And obviously, that's a pretty convenient math problem when you're the one committing these felonies. But every criminal story needs a nemesis, and that's where Ken Sanders walks in. Ken Sanders is a rare book dealer from Salt Lake City, and he was so passionate about protecting books that he basically became a book world detective. Is that what Fievel was about? There's a cartoon from childhood that was about like a detective and books.
I don't know. My husband has mentioned Fievel, but I don't think I ever I don't have any memory of that.
Somewhere out there, I used to like literally sing to the moon and think that there was someone out there looking at the same moon. It was creepy. But Ken Sanders was relentless. He would study John Gilkey's methods, tracked his purchases, and even set up a sting operation in 2003 with California police. They used this rare Steinbeck edition as bait, and when John showed up at the hotel to pick it up, officers arrested him. At the time, he had multiple stolen books and fake documents in his possession. He actually went to San Quentin, which I was like, really? For this? In 2004 for 18 months, but shocker. Prison did not cure his obsession.
I didn't even know you could go to San Quentin for like a short-term sentence.
And definitely not for just stealing books, not just stealing books. I mean, he was 60% right and 40% wrong, but for like not a violent crime,
yeah,
I would be
it's wild.
Ticked if I ended up in there. By 2010, though, John Gilkey was back at it. He was arrested again in San Francisco for stealing antique maps. Clearly, old habits die hard.
So Gilkey actually became a bit of a celebrity in the rare book world, but in the worst possible way. He was the subject of Alison Hoover Bartlett's book called The Man Who Loved Books Too Much, and he even popped up in NPR and podcast episodes. Experts studying him labeled his condition bibliokleptomania. Okay, so this is specifically a compulsive need to steal books. We've all heard of kleptomania, but this is specifically when you are compulsively compelled to steal books.
This is a new one for me.
Definitely for me too. But they noted obsessive compulsive tendencies, narcissistic traits, and a giant case of intellectual vanity. And unlike thieves who steal for profit, Gilkey was stealing to really just fill a hole in his own self-image, because to him, those books were the ticket to the life he thought he deserved. And in the end, he didn't just steal books. He stole a peace of mind from the whole community of dealers and collectors and forced them to really tighten security, verify transactions, and share information about thefts, which I guess things like this usually are the way we get tighter security, for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You know who this guy reminds me of, Mandy?
Who?
Everett Dutchke.
Yes.
We just covered the documentary from Netflix called The Kings of Tupelo. It's 3 parts. If you wanted to listen to it, it's on our Patreon and Apple and Spotify subscription. But oh my gosh, if you watch that documentary, you know J. Everett Dutchke and what, like how much these two. I can see him as the character in this. But yeah, and if you haven't watched it, please watch it because it's my whole personality.
Yes.
I'm still talking about it. So the next person we're going to talk about is someone named Edward Forbes Smiley III. Let's get that right. He was stealing maps to keep up this image that he was this intellectual. So where John Gilkey's trying to feel like an intellectual, Edward Forbes Smiley III was stealing them to keep up this appearance that he already was one. So Edward was born in 1956 in New Hampshire, and he had the kind of name that makes you immediately picture a prep school blazer and a boat slip. He went to Hampshire College, he did a year at Princeton Theological Seminary, and then he worked his way into the rare books and maps world in New York in the 1980s. And he was someone that was charming and witty, and he seems to know absolutely everything about maps. Dealers and collectors respected him, librarians trusted him, and scholars quoted him. He was someone that had this big, booming belly laugh and a way of making people feel like they were in on something special when he talked about a discovery. And for a while, he was genuinely successful. Edward helped build some of the most important map collections in America, like the Lawrence Slaughter collection at the New York Public Library, the Norman Leventhal collection in Boston, but behind this persona, his finances were a mess. Edward had actually bought too many properties, including a farmhouse in Maine, a house on Martha's Vineyard, which you know is going to be expensive. He actually took that one, tore it down, and built something even bigger and better, so I can't imagine how expensive that was. But he was someone that would renovate, expand, and invest, and he racked up debt doing this. Rivals in the trade quietly referred to him as slow pay or no pay, which doesn't seem like a very nice, it's a long nickname, but it's not a very nice one. And when the bills came due, Edward turned to the maps he was supposed to be protecting. And he developed this precise surgical method. Using an Exacto Blade, he would carefully slice rare maps out of centuries-old atlases.
What?
I know. Imagine, I don't know, I'm just too dumb. I don't trust myself with an Exacto knife. There's just a lot that could go wrong for me. So his targets were often folded or tucked inside books. So with the right cut, he could slip them out without immediate detection. So he could take these maps, they're in a book, and now he's out of there.
So he had a very refined taste. He seemed to like maps that are they artists? What do you call them? What do you call people who...
Do we call them people? Is it like Christopher Columbus?
I don't know.
Explored the world?
I don't know. But this guy really liked things that were
done.
Leave
a comment if you know these names.
He liked things that were done by people such as Hernan Cortez, Samuel de Champlain, John Smith, and Henry Briggs. Melissa, do you know any of those men?
John Smith, 100% was in Pocahontas.
100%. So he liked maps that didn't just show geography, but told stories about the Age of Discovery and the founding of the colonies. And since he was trusted, he had access to all of these things. Yale, Harvard, the Boston Public Library, the Newberry in Chicago, and even the British Library in London. These institutions all welcomed him like he was just their old friend. Meanwhile, he's literally slicing up maps.
All up and down the eastern seaboard.
There you go. And that was until June 8th of 2005. That morning at Yale's Beinecke Rare Book Library, a staffer named Naomi Saito noticed an Exacto Blade lying on the reading room floor. Another reason why you can't use an Exacto Blade, because I would be the one to leave it behind by accident. And another staffer, Ellen Cortez, picked it up and immediately felt a chill. She's thinking, like, who would bring a razor blade into a rare book room? Not someone with good intentions, that's for sure.
I mean, good on her. Right? I don't think I would have put it together very quickly.
I would be like somebody was opening a box in here and left their box cutter. So they looked around and they ended up spotting Edward in his pale tweed blazer examining maps. And when they checked the sign-in sheet, they confirmed his name. A quick Google search told them exactly who he was, and that was a famous map dealer. So suddenly, everything started to click into place, and this wasn't just some ordinary Exacto knife that someone accidentally dropped for, non-nefarious purposes. This was actually the equivalent of the murder weapon. It was a smoking gun, really. So the security began to watch him very closely, and the campus police were called in. And we'll get back into exactly what happened after one last break to hear a word from this week's sponsors.
You know that little thrill you get when you found the best deal? That's what Rakuten feels like every time I shop.
Same here. I've used it at places I already shop all the time, like Target, Ulta, and even Ticketmaster. And I love that you can stack cashback right on top of sales.
And it's really so simple. Stores pay Rakuten for sending them shoppers, and Rakuten shares that money back with you as cash back. At this point, I can't imagine not using Rakuten. We are in the fall, and it's going to be Christmas and the holidays before you know it. So now's a great time to sign up. You can get the cash back through PayPal or a check, and it adds up faster than you'd think. The funny thing to me is it's actually harder to find stores that aren't on Rakuten than are. There are so many places I already shop, which makes it so much easier. If it was, a place I have to go across town that I wouldn't normally go to, I wouldn't do it.
Plus, it's totally free to sign up, and over 17 million members are already saving. Members have earned more than $4.6 billion in cash back. If you're not using it yet, now's the time, because why not maximize your savings? Download the free Rakuten app or go to Rakuten.com to start saving today. That's Rakuten. Rakuten.com. This episode is brought to you by IQ Bar, our exclusive snack and hydration sponsor. IQ Bar is the better-for-you, plant protein-based snack made with brain-boosting nutrients to refuel, nourish, and satisfy hunger without the sugar crash.
Mandy, I am obsessed with mint chocolate chips, so it's no surprise that the IQ protein bar with that flavor is my go-to. It actually tastes so good, but it's packed with plant protein, more fiber, and less sugar than the usual snacks I'd reach for.
And IQ Bar makes more than just bars. Their Ultimate Sampler Pack has everything. 9 bars, 8 hydration mixes, and 4 instant coffee sticks. So you can try it all without committing to just one thing.
I also love that all of their products are clean, so there's no gluten, dairy, soy, GMOs, or artificial sweeteners. Just ingredients that make sense and actually fit into a busy day.
And with over 20,000 5-star reviews, people clearly love it. It's an easy way to fuel your day, whether that's with a bar, a hydration mix, or even their mushroom coffee.
And right now, IQ Bar is offering our special podcast listeners 20% off all IQ Bar products, including the sampler pack, plus free shipping. To get your 20% off, text MOMS to 64,000. Text MOMS to 64,000. That's MOMS to 64,000. Message and data rates may apply. See terms for details. And now, back to the episode. So before the break, our friend Edward has really slipped up. He has left his Exacto knife in a room of rare books, and now everyone is kind of on to him. So enter Detective Martin Buonfiglio. Martin was shadowing Edward as he left the library. He then followed him to a museum gift shop and finally confronted him. When shown the Exacto Blade, Edward nervously admitted that it was his, saying he must have dropped it. I have a cold, which,
okay,
please explain that one to me.
I mean, I guess you're clumsier when you're sick.
Was it in your nose?
Right.
It doesn't make any sense. So police searched his briefcase and they found 7 maps. He also had one more hidden in his jacket pocket, and he was arrested on the spot. At first, though, Edward tried to claim that these maps were his, and he just brought them in for comparison. But of course, as investigators dug deeper, the truth unraveled. Faced with mounting evidence, Edward confessed. Over 4 years, he admitted to stealing 97 maps from at least 6 major institutions. Their combined value was more than $3 million.
Wow. I didn't even...
Imagine...
I don't know how people even get involved in this world, like in these worlds. That went way over my head. I had no idea maps were worth so much money.
You know what's going to be worth a lot of money one day? MapQuest maps. Remember how we used to print those out?
100%. Yes.
Someone's going to have a story about someone with an Exacto knife stealing MapQuest things from a library.
Crazy. So one of the most heartbreaking losses was a Samuel de Champlain map from 1612 that was stolen from the Boston Public Library. Others included a Cortes map from Harvard and Abraham Ortelius's Typus Orbis Terrarum. Don't know what that is. I'm assuming it's a map, but it could be a painting. It could be a book. I have no idea what it even is.
Great job reading those. Those were difficult.
That was very hard. But by the time he was sentenced in 2006, Edward had actually cooperated with the FBI and helped to recover most of the stolen maps. All but 6 were eventually found, and they were often found after being brought in good faith by dealers or collectors who had heard about this whole big thing and decided generously to give them back. So Edward ended up getting 42 months in federal prison, and he was ordered to pay $2.3 million in restitution. When he was released in 2010, his reputation had been destroyed. The rare map trade that was once built on just handshakes and trust now had tighter security protocols and stricter inventories, and they kept a wary eye for even the most respected insiders, which good because usually it's the most respected insiders. It's usually the most inside that are responsible for doing things like this. So Edward's downfall was just a reminder that the biggest threat is not always outsiders with crowbars. Sometimes it is just the people that have keys to the building.
Very true. So if John Gilkey's obsession was books and Edward Smiley's was maps, Edwin Rist's fixation was feathers.
Feathers.
Where did we get to a place of feathers? Go ahead, Mandy.
I don't have any words. Like I said, I don't know how people get involved in some of these hobbies and some of these like interests that they have. I don't like at what point in your life did you decide that feathers was your thing?
I don't know. I'm very wary of feathers. If I see a feather, I'm like, this just came out of something.
I was always told not to ever touch feathers because like they're gross and disgusting and like whatever. But I don't know if that's even true. I just was told
you're
that
not supposed to swallow gum either.
Right,
but I learned that that's not a lie.
Exactly.
You could swallow gum. I spent years not swallowing gum, being terrified it was going to take 7 years to digest. So these weren't any feathers, though. These are rare exotic plumage prized by a small but fervent group of Victorian fly tying enthusiasts. Sure. So Edwin was born around 1987 in New York City by two Ivy League parents. He was homeschooled, musically gifted, and by the age of 10, he was already winning flute competitions. But while his musical talent got him into the prestigious Royal Academy of Music in London, his heart was already very tangled up in a very different world. Victorian salmon fly tying.
Okay.
I mean, who isn't at that age?
Right. Sounds like a good old-fashioned pastime.
Yes, exactly. But this was a subculture where artisans recreated elaborate 19th century fishing flies, not for actual fishing, but as an art form. The catch, though, is the recipes called for feathers from birds that were either endangered, protected, or even extinct. In the fly tying underground world, apparently, some individual feathers sold for thousands of dollars, and Edwin was hooked. He scoped out the Natural History Museum at Tring, about 40 miles north of London.
So this museum housed one of the largest ornithological collections in the entire world, including 750,000 bird skins, some that were collected by absolute legends, like this guy I've never heard of named Alfred Russel
But he's a legend.
Right. So among the stolen species were red-ruffed fruit crows, spangled cotingas, bowerbirds, like I've never even heard of most of these birds, and quetzals, which I've heard of, but couldn't tell you what it looked like or draw you a picture of one.
Didn't know it was spelled like that, I'll tell you that much.
For
With
sure.
a Q?
Yeah, I know. I haven't reached that level. I haven't reached that stage of life yet where I am familiar with bird names and sounds.
Oh, yeah.
But when the police finally did come to arrest Edwin in 2010, they found bags of feathers, boxes of bird skins, and fly tying equipment in his apartment. His defense team argued that he had Asperger's syndrome and this like completely obsessional interest that just clouded his judgment. And a psychologist even testified about his condition. So Edwin was given a suspended sentence and managed to avoid prison, but he was ordered to pay restitution. He did later graduate and move to Germany, and now he posts, get this, heavy metal flute covers on YouTube, which I'm actually low-key interested in and I want to go check out. But of course, the damage was already done. Although 174 birds were recovered, many were mutilated, their tags were removed, and their scientific value was lost forever.
Here's what I've learned today. People are really into things I don't get. Books, sure. Okay, fine. First edition,
right.
Whatever. Not my thing, but I do know people that are into that. Maps, we're getting a little further from,
right.
Things I think I would take. Feathers that I can literally find on the ground. Obviously, these I can't, but you can't tell me I could tell the difference. This is wild. I don't understand, being willing to go to jail and prison for these things.
Well, imagine being like any of these guys, like mothers, right? And they're like children. And as they're growing up, you're like, this is wonderful. My son is so into books, like intellectual books. Or my child is very into like maps. Like it's better than doing anything worse. And then come to find out that like,
They've done a whole criminal career.
Exactly. I just make it make sense, right? Who would ever think that their child's obsession with bird feathers would turn into literally stealing scientific like artifacts like from institutions. It's absolutely crazy. You would never think that.
No, you wouldn't. But this was wild to me. And I learned that I can't say a lot of words because this one was filled with words I've never heard. And Mandy, we're going to do something we haven't done in a while. We're doing the last thing before we go, art edition, because we did this. It's probably been 2 or 3 years now that we did this.
But it was always a popular one.
It's a popular one. It's so fun. So we have both looked for really weird art on the internet. Probably should have been more specific, but we are sending each other these paintings. We'll have them on social media, and we're saying what we would name these like famous, infamous paintings. So Mandy, I would love it if you would kick us off with the first one. Describe what you're seeing and give it a name.
I don't even know how to describe what I'm seeing. There's like a rocking horse and a real horse and a cat giraffe horse that also looks like a hyena.
A hyena. I thought that too.
But it has really long legs. And then there is a person with like very messy hair sitting on a chair in the middle of a room with nothing else in it. Why is everything so random?
Wearing booty
heels, a really weird yellow curtain on the window. No
Mandy,
furniture.
What's behind the hyena? Is that gas? Is that dirt? Or did they smudge it? What is that?
Oh, I don't know. Wow. Okay, I don't know what's going on here. I'm going to call this one Carnival of My Nightmares.
That's a good one. It's actually by someone named Lenora Carrington. It's called Self-Portrait.
Wow.
And
okay.
Lenora did not have very high self-esteem that day, and she was going through something. So yes, that's my first one.
Wow. All right. Okay. So Melissa, I sent you also a very interesting first image. And why don't you tell us what you're seeing?
Number 1, how dare you? Number 2, this looks like a giant leaning over the water, and the giant is throwing coins maybe in the water. That's not the unsettling part. The unsettling part is the giant is not wearing pants, and the back end of the giant has, thank goodness it's not children, but it looks like little men climbing into the square-shaped buttocks of the giant. And let's see, what would I call this? I would call this a penny for your thoughts.
Okay, I actually like that. I see where you're going with that. So this one is actually called The Flatterers, and this painting is from 1592. And I guess the artist, Peter Bruegel, I'm not really sure, but he was actually known as being a peasant, and he always had all these chaotic scenes in his paintings. But this one particularly, The Flatterers, is supposed to be kind of a metaphor, like a visual metaphor for people who are like suck-ups.
Climbing up your butt?
Yes, like people who, like, because the giant has like the coins or whatever, and like all these people are like crawling right up his backside. Like, it's kind of like a metaphor just for people.
Okay, I like it.
Yeah,
I like it. I don't like to see it, but I like it. That was awesome.
Okay, so next one, it's very simple. I see a pipe, like a smoking pipe, like an old school one, and there are some words in what possibly is French.
I think so.
I don't know how to read it, and I'm not going to try, but I do think that the last part of it says a pipe.
Very good. Very good. What would you call this?
I have no idea. I don't even have a clever or exciting thought about this because it's so simple.
Basic.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this one is called This Is Not a Pipe by Renee Marguerite. And that's why I picked it, because that's literally what it says underneath it. This is not a pipe. So what is it? I don't understand. Why is this art?
I don't understand what it is.
Nobody's ever stolen this, I'll tell you that much.
No, it looks like a pipe to me, but no, I don't know. That'll be an interesting one to see what the listeners on Instagram think about that one.
Please let us know, because that one is, it's no people calling up somebody's beehole, but it is a little different. This is upsetting. Okay, the next one Mandy sent me. Well, you know what? At first I thought it was like an octopus, but it's not. It looks like a human skull coming out of looking into a river. It looks like a Titanic submersible kind of thing where somebody's looking outside at the Titanic. Yeah. But I'm going to call this one, in honor of Fievel, Somewhere Out There.
Nice.
What is this one called?
Nice. So this one is, I don't Oh, this one is called, okay, let me try my best here. I did not look up the actual pronunciation. No. This one's called The Phantom of Kohada Koheji. I'm not really sure. It was completed in 1831, and it says the information about this painting says that the subject of this eerie print from the 100 Ghost Stories series is believed to have lived in Edo during the end of the Edo period. I know nothing about periods.
I'm more confused after hearing that.
So I guess the artist it's thought that his wife had an affair and plotted to have him assassinated along with her lover. And so he turned into a ghost and followed them. And I guess he slayed his wife. This is a story made up. Sure. And her boyfriend went insane and then died by suicide. And so in this creepy print, this deceased actor is like portrayed like a zombie with his skin and hair still hanging from his skull, like in this skeleton image. I feel like it's a little abstract, maybe.
Yeah. I don't get it.
I don't get it a ton. And the explanation didn't help me really get it. But I just thought I chose this one and I thought it was funny and actually funny because we mentioned intrusive thoughts in this episode, because to me, like, this looks like this is like my inner brain, like talking, like looking 100%. looking out, like trying to like reach me and be like, hello. These are my intrusive thoughts. So anyway, yeah, but I really don't know. I've never seen the painting before, and it is an interesting one.
I hope to never see it again, but that is an interesting one. Okay, Mandy, my last one that you sent me is, why are there so many butts involved in yours? I
guess I was in some kind of mood today.
So this is a man, a woman, another weird man in the back, and I hope to God it's a child. But a man is holding his nose. A lady's looking like at the camera, like almost like Jen from The Office, like, look at what I'm having to deal with, and has a napkin and is wiping a baby's butt.
Yep, that's exactly what you're seeing.
That is what I'm seeing. And there's a creepy man kind of right by her head that's like really into it, which is what's concerning me the most. But yeah, that's it. But the man, that's just a man being dramatic. Like, they are always like with a diaper.
Yeah.
My dad used to wear he did paint and body work. So he had like real masks when my brother was little and would put those on before he would change a diaper.
Oh my gosh.
Like, this is so dramatic.
No way. That's funny.
So I would call this one Baby Got Back.
Okay. I was going to call it A Day in the Life because it honestly just looks like
true.
Really. But no, so this one, the painting is actually just called Smell, and it's from 1637. I won't say the artist's name because I will absolutely butcher it. But we will put it on Instagram when we put these up there. But this one is basically just more of a joke. So the little explanation underneath this on the website that I found this painting on, it says painted jokes became more common during the Dutch Golden Age, when you can imagine someone roaring with laughter at one of the paintings carefully gathered in their collection. Okay, a good example of this is the humor in this painting, Smell. So basically it was just meant to be like a funny, like a humorous painting, which is so weird to think about because, like, okay, imagine living in a time, Melissa, where there is no trash TV. There's no, like,
I'm already out.
What is there to entertain you? So, like, it does make sense that, like, they would turn paintings into, like, humorous works of something to entertain people, and not just, not just painting portraits or painting sad scenes or happy scenes or landscape scenes, but like actually just intentionally choosing to paint something that's meant to just like make people laugh. Like, that was like the earliest form of, like, they didn't have TV and like comedy and stuff. Life must have been so boring if all you could do is paint jokes.
Imagine how long you have to wait to laugh at this. Like, you have... It's like, I'll be back in 3 weeks. I'm going to have something really funny for you guys. Also, why does that baby have such defined calves?
Seriously.
That baby does not miss leg day.
No. Yeah, no, the baby is ripped for sure. So, yeah, those were funny. Those were great. And I always love doing that. We haven't done a last thing before we go in a while. So hopefully those of you listening enjoyed it and enjoy looking at these really weird paintings.
Yeah, freaks. Perfect.
All right, guys, that was it for this week. Thank you so much for listening. We will be back next week, same time, same place, new story.
Have a great week.
Bye.